Thank you. Well, I am running for Bowie County Judge because after 24 years, I think it's time for new leadership in our courthouse. But I'm not here to talk to you about that tonight. I've got a lot of literature over on my table over there. Feel free to go by and pick it up. That'll tell you more about my campaign. What I'd like to speak about tonight, did I hear somebody ask you earlier if you've been taxed enough already? How many of you would agree with George Washington when he wrote, "Government is not reason, government is not eloquence, government is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master." I think George Washington would be a part of the Tea Party today, don't you? How about Thomas Jefferson? Somebody wrote Thomas Jefferson and said he ought to have more confidence in government. And he wrote back and he said, "Let no more be heard of confidence in men, but to bind them down for mischief with the change of the Constitution." Do you like that? I think Thomas Jefferson would be a Tea Party participant. But my favorite comes from Benjamin Franklin. Ben Franklin said, "No man's life, liberty, or property is safe as long as the legislature is in session." Make that the city council. How about the commissioner's court? Now, we're being accused of being anti-government, as if though we think there shouldn't be any government at all. I can't go back on 50 years of preaching Romans, the 13th chapter, that says that God authored that there be civil government. But God's Word teaches from Old Testament through the New Testament that government is to be strictly limited. It is there to protect us and not provide for us. Do you agree? I think the best definition of Americanism I could give anybody comes from the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. And it's interesting because one of the least religious men among our forefathers was Thomas Jefferson. And yet he basically says, here's what Americanism is. Number one, there is a God. Number two, our rights come from God. Number three, those rights, governments are instituted to protect those God-given rights. And number four, the government gets its authority from the consent of the governed. Now, somebody that hasn't read the Declaration of Independence in a long time might say, does it really say that? Well, let me read those first few sentences to you. "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights." I wonder if it would be legal for a biology teacher to even read the Declaration of Independence to her class today. "That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." By the way, the next part would interest you as Tea Partiers. It goes on to say that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.